My in-studio guest today, Frank Gutierrez. We're still getting him adjusted a little bit. Frank's running for County Commissioner seat, Precinct 3. Is that right, Frank?
That is correct.
All right. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show. Appreciate this opportunity to be able to share some things about me, background, and views, issues, and what political races are made of.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. And I'll let the listeners know we're friends. So if there's some hostility, it's absolutely on purpose. I like to poke at Frank once in a while and keep him honest. Now, Frank, you're no stranger to the campaign arena. You've run against City Councilman Victor Hernandez, a pretty tight race. You've worked on numerous campaigns. You've gone out and block walked in areas that are not friendly to most people, and now you've thrown your hat in the ring you're actually running in the Republican primary unopposed, so you'll run in the general election against the winner. I believe Bubba Cedeno has drawn an opponent, so your race really begins after the primary. But why are you interested in running against Bubba?
Well, if it's Bubba, and that's another primary.
Let's say it is. Bubba's he's been there for a while, and he's the incumbent. Let's say Bubba wins. But really, my question is, why are you interested in this seat? Are you there just to defeat a Democrat? Are you really interested in the seat because you can make a difference?
It's because of what you mentioned before. Worked the different campaigns and been across the city from one end to the other, especially District 1 and Precinct 3. I've seen the conditions of the city, and I've seen the conditions of the city that are due to lack of leadership. That's why when you mentioned that previous race against an incumbent councilman, it was for those reasons, for the lack of leadership. And it's the same thing in this particular race. But then again, that's a different primary. And I'm running in the Republican primary essentially to build on the minority participation in the Republican Party. And I'll tell you why. The growth is enormous. And it's expected at some point in the future the population of Texas will be majority Hispanic. The figures do not lie. It's happening. And we've seen, I believe I shared a PowerPoint presentation with you on the demographics. And that's one of the reasons that I'm interested in this, because of the growing number of folks out there that need to be encouraged and invited to participate in the Republican Party. I have a difficult time, especially in these days, of selling the party simply because of the national issues. And we have to bring those, or rather localize those issues to the future. And that future indicates that the Hispanic population is booming while the Anglo population is declining. By sometime after 2017, we're going to be at a majority of the population. At some time in between 2030 and 2040, we're going to be at 57% of the population in Texas. There are many young people coming up, and the birth rate for Hispanics is quite high, while the birth rate for other groups is not as reflective of the population.
Well, let me interject here, Frank. I get what you're saying. I get it that the demographics are shifting. However, that is all irrelevant when we start talking about turnout. Now, minority or especially Hispanic turnout has been relatively low in Texas, especially maybe not down in the valley in the Rio Grande area, but up here in West Texas, our Hispanic turnout is relatively low. You know this. So what happens when the Hispanic population starts to grow and they become a larger percentage of the total population? Does that mean that our total voter turnout is going to continue to go down? And if so, how do you outreach to those people?
Part of the challenge is to increase that turnout, because if we have at some point in the future an opportunity to be able to demonstrate majority rule, and if we don't have the foundation to be able to meet those needs in the future, then it's all for naught. A majority government will not mean anything to anybody if we don't take advantage of that opportunity. But that's in the future. Today it's important because of the manner in which we're doing or not doing outreach on behalf of the Republican Party. And that's why you have low voter participation, low interest in the Republican Party, low interest in politics in general. At the national level, we do have some interest because of the quality of candidates that are coming into the picture. Ted Cruz being one of them is encouraging Hispanics to participate. We see the numbers. In the 2012 election, 46% turned out and voted for Romney. So is the Hispanic participation voter rate there? Yes, it is. The numbers reflect it. And that is why it's important for us now to be able to continue to open up dialogues so that we can do outreach and bring in more black participation, more Hispanic participation, whose values, by the way, are very much in line with the conservative views of the Republican Party.
They're in line with the Republican Party, but yet they tend to vote with the Democrats. Why is
For
that?
now, the demographics indicate that it's split almost evenly as far as participation with either or the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. It's evenly split. But the future of the party depends on minority political participation. If we don't have it, then the party dies.
I think I'll agree with you to an extent there. I think that our party is also, and when I say our party, the Republican Party, the makeup is starting to become more and more libertarian. What percentage of the Hispanic population are libertarians?
I would not know that. The majority seem to be supportive of Democratic Party politics because of the issues involved. In the case of supporting the Republican Party, that is more closely in line with the Hispanic values. It's a matter of educating folks on the similarity in views and in issues. And in doing so, we also have to be compassionate about immigration, for example. The discussion that's happening at the national level with the presidential candidates, it's very important because it's transcending down, and it's either turning on or turning off people. I want to be able to open up the process so that we get more people involved. Here's another factor that's very important. I occasionally run across individuals that have become citizens, that have followed the legal process, become citizens, registered to vote, and now they're asking, who do I support? And I'm going to tell them who to support. And, of course, I'm going to ask for support for me. But at the same time, what that means is that we are encouraging folks to follow the path to citizenship. They're doing it. They're responding. Now the challenge is to reach out and invite them, much as the Cubans did in the early 80s, rather the Republican Party did in Cuba, rather Florida, after the Marielitos came in the early 80s. And as a result, you have loyalty of the Cuban people to the Republican Party.
Okay, so how much, what percentage of immigration? I mean, is that one of the hot topics when you go out and you start doing minority outreach? Is that what's the hottest topic?
Well, unemployment, jobs.
Well, that's everybody's hot topic.
Exactly, and we're just like everybody else. We're Americans of Mexican descendancy for the most part. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're playing by the rules, coming to work every day and meeting our responsibilities, which is another thing that is hurting the Hispanic population, is the lack of personal responsibility. But if I may turn the topic a little bit more, you mentioned that we might be able to discuss a few things about my background. I am a veteran, as you know. Mm-hmm. Did a tour of duty in 1968 and with the 25th Infantry Division. And I wanted to mention that because today marks the anniversary of my return from the Vietnam War. And it's today. Wow. And it marks a very special time in my life because I left my friends over there. And things were happening, as you can imagine. You've been in the Army, and I reflect on that because it happened during the towards the the end of 1968. I was processing out of Long Binh, South Vietnam at the 90th replacement, and I almost didn't get out because of, guess what? The Bob Hope show was going on. And everybody in personnel was gone, and they were over at some open rice paddy where there was a presentation by Bob Hope and his the show at the time. Mm-hmm. So I almost didn't get out. But I did, and I made it home on Christmas Eve in 1968. And to my family was surprised because they didn't expect me. I should have been home earlier, but due to the quickness of the processing, because it was Christmas, I got out and I was able to return safely to my home. Mm-hmm. And I reflect on that during these days because many of the men that I served with did not make it home, and I know that today there's many of our men and women in uniform that are serving and are not going to be able to be home for Christmas. And to them, it is special that we understand the meaning of not being able to be home for Christmas.
Yeah, and I can relate, Frank. I've been one of those service members that spent Christmas out to sea. It's not any fun. But I want to get into a little bit more of your campaign and reasons why you're running. Let's take the break and sit tight. When we come back, more with Frank Gutierrez. I'm Steve Evans, and for Chad Hasty on KFYO. My in-studio guest, Frank Gutierrez. We've talked about how to reach out to minority voters and get them involved and get that base energized. So I want to shift topics, Frank, and I'm interested. A lot of us know who you are. You're a veteran. You've been around. The real question I have is why? Why are you seeking this office? Is it are there things about the office that you don't like? You don't like the way the Commissioner's Court has carried themselves? You don't like the way they've handled our money? What are the reasons that you're truly seeking this office and things you'll change?
I can only speak to the position I seek, and that's Precinct 3, Lubbock County Commissioner's Court. It's a body of 5, and I can only address one particular area as to the overall composition of the court. That's up to the different precincts. But I feel that they're inaccessible. I feel that in the case of the incumbent for Precinct 3 is unavailable, does not provide the leadership that's necessary in order to build on what we're talking about.
When you say he's unavailable, what do you mean when you say he's unavailable?
Well, it's similar to the hibernating bear. You only come out when it's time to come out, and in this case, it's re-election time, so now we see him out in public. But again, that's a different race. What I'm pointing to is the lack of leadership in the community in order to be able to build on the numbers and get people involved. If you're not actively doing that in one way or another, then folks are not able to see what your position involves. And one of them is leadership, aside from the duties of a commissioner. There's also a need for leadership in the Hispanic community and the black community, and that leadership, we have some, but we don't have as much as we need and will require for the future needs of the community.
Mm-hmm. Well, and certainly the poll numbers are really the voter numbers in the general election will answer that question for you pretty quick. So what things about And you know, you don't have to speak to the whole Commissioner's Court, but you certainly have an opinion. You're a citizen of Lubbock County. You've seen what the Commissioner's Court, how they've operated. What are some key things about how they've operated that you're upset with, and that has motivated you to run against for this race?
I'm not upset per se. I'm just concerned because of the manner in which some of these things have been carried out. With regard to the tax increase of last year, no, there were some rumblings about the increase, but I was in a presentation by Sheriff Kelly Rowe as to why that increase was necessary. And for folks that are wanting to know or want to pick that budget apart, it's important for them to note that The sheriff has his hands full.
And of course, you're referring to the drug cartel
Yes,
presentation
to
that
the
many
cartel.
of us have seen.
See,
and Sheriff Rose been on
exactly.
this program with Chad.
And I was not privy to that until a few weeks ago. And after I saw that, I understood. However, when it comes to the manner in which it was done, and then the previous year we have a pay raise increase, and the manner in which that was done.
Okay, when you say the manner in which the tax increase was done, what do you mean by that?
No, not the tax increase. The pay increase. The tax increase was justified because of the supposedly there's a cartel in heavy cartel involvement in the area, and there is.
Right.
There's no question about it. And the sheriff does need help. What I'm referring to more is the previous pay raise for elected officials and the manner in which that was carried out. I've talked to several people, and this is not me saying, it's several folks have highlighted to me as to what happened or may have happened. Now, we can't answer that. You got to ask the commissioners as to what happened. All we can say, and all I can say, that the perception of impropriety was created, and there has to be some responses.
Well, that's a serious allegation. What do you mean by the impropriety?
Well, it would involve more of a discussion where once it's determined as to who the other party's nominee is, then that would come out in the open. If it is the incumbent, then obviously that would be the question. But for now, it's the perception, and by the perception I mean is there were so many different ways that so many public events that took place. For example, of the 10 people that were allowed to make a comment at the hearing when the raise came into the picture, 9 of them said, you don't deserve a raise. And that didn't matter to the commissioners. And folks in general are concerned about that because it was such a heavy increase, almost a 40% increase, which is unheard of.
All right. Well, we got to wrap it up, Frank. Do you have a website, Facebook page, anything like that people can reach out to you?
Just my Facebook.
You want to put that out?
Just Frank Gutierrez, and that's it, Frank Gutierrez. Okay. We're working on developing some things for the campaign, of course, and once we know who our opponent is in November, then we'll hit the ground running. Thank you very much.
Hey, Frank, thanks for coming out. I'm sure we're going to want to talk some more in the future.
Oh, we will.